A single summer used to feel endless. 3 months felt so long that they seemed to last forever. But now something strange happens. A year begins, you make plans, you tell yourself you'll finally do the things you've been putting off, and then somehow it's December again. Another year is gone. Most people think that's just what getting older feels like. But that's not quite right. Because the feeling that time is speeding up isn't an illusion. Something is actually changing. And the reason why reveals something unsettling about how your brain experiences life itself. Think about your childhood. Your first day at school, your first friend, your first heartbreak. Your brain had never seen any of it before. Every experience was new. Every experience demanded attention. And attention is expensive. When something is unfamiliar, your brain records far more information about it. More details, more emotions, more memories. As a result, childhood becomes densely packed with experiences. Not because more happened, but because more was saved. And that's important, because your brain often uses memories as a shortcut for measuring time. The more memories a period creates, the longer that period feels when you look back on it. Which explains why childhood often feels so much bigger than adulthood. But here is where the explanation begins to fall apart. Childhood ended years ago, yet many adults still feel as time is accelerating right now. Not just compared to childhood, but compared to last year, or even last month. So memory explains why the distant past feels larger, but it doesn't explain why the present seems to disappear so quickly. That raises a different question. Imagine starting a new job. On your first day, everything feels unfamiliar. You learn people's names, you try to remember which hallway leads where. By the end of the first week, your brain is still working hard. Now imagine coming back 6 months later. You walk through the same building almost without thinking. You don't notice the hallway anymore, you don't notice the signs, you don't even notice the people you've been seeing every day. The building didn't change. Your brain did. Once something becomes familiar, it requires far less attention. And that raises a difficult question. If your brain is paying less attention, what else is it quietly letting go? Think about last Tuesday. What did you eat? Who did you talk to? What were you thinking about at 2:17 p.m.? Most people have no idea. And the reason isn't that Tuesday was unimportant. It's that your brain decided it wasn't worth keeping. Every second, your senses are feeding your brain enormous amounts of information, far more than it could ever store, so it deletes almost everything. Constantly. Relentlessly. The vast majority of your life never becomes memory at all. It disappears. This is one of the brain's most important jobs. If it remembered everything equally, it would be overwhelmed. Instead, it keeps only what seems useful. The surprising consequence is that large portions of adulthood begin to blur together. Not because life stopped happening, because less of it survives. But forgetting isn't the real mystery. The real mystery is why the brain decides some experiences are worth keeping and others are not. For a long time, scientists thought memory was the key. If some moments survived, while others disappeared, then memory must be making the decision. But memory only tells us what was saved. It doesn't explain why those moments were chosen in the first place. Think about it. Why does a random Tuesday vanish forever, while a vacation from 10 years ago remains vivid? Why does your first kiss survive, but last Wednesday is already gone? Why does your brain decide that one moment deserves to become a part of your life story, while another is erased almost immediately? The answer isn't memory. Memory is the result. The real decision happens much earlier, long before a memory is ever created. Most people think the brain experiences reality. It doesn't, at least not directly. Modern neuroscience suggests that your brain is constantly predicting reality before it happens. Right now, your brain is making thousands of guesses every second. What you'll see, what you'll hear, what comes next. And when those predictions are correct, something interesting happens. The brain pays less attention, because attention costs energy. Why waste resources processing something you already expected. This means familiarity becomes almost invisible. The road to work, the grocery store, your neighborhood, your daily routine, your brain stops treating them as information. It starts treating them as background. And background rarely becomes memory. This is why novelty feels so powerful. Travel to a foreign country, move to a new city, learn a language, start a new career. Suddenly the brain can't rely on predictions anymore. It has to start paying attention again. And attention creates memories, which creates the feeling of time expanding. For a brief moment, life feels bigger again. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If novelty can make a single year feel longer, what exactly is a long life? Imagine two people. Both live exactly 1 year. The first person spent the year doing roughly the same thing every day. The second spent the year learning new skills, meeting new people, visiting unfamiliar places, taking risks, having experiences they couldn't have predicted. When those two people look back on the year later, they won't remember the same amount of life. 1 year will feel larger than the other, richer, denser, longer. And that's strange, because the calendar insists both years were exactly the same size. But the brain disagrees, which suggests something unsettling. Maybe our experience of life isn't measured in time. Maybe it's measured in differences. Differences between one day and the next, differences between who you were and who you became, differences between what you expected and what actually happened. The calendar counts years, but the brain counts change. The Earth is still moving around the Sun at the same speed. The clocks are still ticking at the same rate. The days are arriving exactly as they always have. What's changing is how much of those days your brain decides to keep. As you grow older, the world becomes more familiar, more predictable, more compressed. And maybe that's why childhood felt endless. Not because there was more time, but because there was more world, more things to notice, more things to remember, more things your brain hadn't learned to ignore yet. The good news is that it isn't something you are forced to accept. Your brain never stops responding to novelty. It never stops creating richer memories when something truly surprises it. Time doesn't speed up because you get older. It speeds up because your days begin to resemble each other. If you will try to change your days, you will change the way life feels when you look back.